My name is Steve Baker. I'm from Springfield Plastics. We manufacture drainage pipe in Auburn, Illinois. I am also on the board of directors for the Agricultural Drainage Management Coalition. This coalition is a group of drainage companies who went together to promote, enhance, demonstrate conservation practices to reduce nutrient discharge off the farmlands. The saturated buffer practices that we have out here, basically what happens is we take the farmer's water that would normally go straight into the creek, the stream, the pond, and we divert that water into the buffer strip. The whole idea of putting in the buffer strip is it's a built-in filter so that two things happen. The vegetation that we see out here in this buffer strip today is taking up the nutrients out of that water. And the second thing that's happened is there's soil microbes that are working that's causing denitrification, and the nitrogen goes on to our atmosphere. So in either case, the nitrogen does not become a problem for a stream and downstream. Really, the main component is a structure. This structure intercepts the main tile line off this farmer's field. When it intercepts it, we actually put another, what we call the lateral distribution line in, and then it takes the water and diverts it down into this buffer strip. In other words, doesn't let the water go straight out being untreated, then the buffer strip takes over from there. To give you an idea, on this buffer strip that we're on right now, in 2015, 26% of the water coming off this farmer's drainage pipe was diverted into this buffer. So we had quite a bit of removal of that nitrate instead of going on out into our stream. All of the buffer strip saturated buffers that we have done so far, we have done them in existing buffer strips. We have not went in and started from scratch. There is questions from the academic world on is there a certain type of vegetation that would work better than other types of vegetation? The answers to those questions we don't know. All we know now is this vegetation will take advantage of nutrients, and whether it's a weed or whether it's prairie grass, it'll take advantage of that nitrogen in the water, the nutrients, and take it up and use it. So no, you do not have to, if you're going to start and say, I want to put a saturated buffer in, we do not have to tear anything up out here. Depending on the size of and depth of the tile line, over there we're talking anywhere from a low of about $2,500 to a high of about $4,000, so it'll be somewhere in that range. The nitrates, if they do get into our streams and ultimately into the Mississippi River, there's a thing called the hypoxia zone in the Gulf of Mexico. That is not good. We want that hypoxia zone to shrink. The academics tell us that if we lower the amount of nitrogen discharge, then we will shrink the size of the hypoxia zone. Well, the nutrient loss reduction strategy was each state has to prepare one of these. The US EPA told them, each state, that they had to come up with these. And what it does is they had to quantify a whole series of practices, whether it be something like a saturated buffer, whether it be cover crops, split timing of nitrogen application. So those are very, very aggressive goals on each of these farming practices for the farmer to say, okay, I've got to try to reach this goal and reduce the amount of nitrogen that's leaving my farm that ends up over here in the stream. So in a nutshell, the nutrient loss reduction strategy is just a whole group of practices with each one of them being quantified to the amount of nitrogen they can save. Well, the first thing I would do is I would recommend them go to our website, the Ag Drainage Management Coalition website, and click on the saturated buffer page. And then you'll go to this very site is listed on that site, but you'll see 14 other sites that are on there. It'll show how these other buffers worked, how this one worked, and you can kind of get a general knowledge of that. Then the second thing I would do is I would go to the local NRCS office. Obviously NRCS now is fully up to speed now on the saturated buffer practices. When is it going to be approved? When is it going to be approved for cost share? So that's the two main sources I would go to first. The whole concept of that nutrient reduction strategy is there is no one practice that can solve that goal of 45% reduction. There is no one practice that can get us to 25. But if we have saturated buffers, split timing of nitrogen, cover crops, You add all those up and maybe we can get to 25%. Maybe we can ultimately get to the 45% by a whole suite of practices rather than just one practice trying to carry the whole load.